So how do we use trend lines to increase our odds of winning when we are trading in the stock market? So I would say that trend lines are one of the most important skill sets to master so that you want to be in the right direction as a trend when you are buying stocks. So for example, when it's an uptrend, you want to think about buying stocks along with the trend, and when it is in a downtrend, you want to be careful. You don't want to buy stocks in a downtrend because it can just go down and down and down. All right, so how do we know whether it's an uptrend or downtrend? Well, very simple. We can use what we call trend lines. Hey guys, Joey here, top tier MyZeal trader in Phillip Securities, and this video will be pretty much talking about trend lines. I would say the perfect beginner trend line trading strategy that I've used forever to pretty much gauge the trend of any counters in a matter of seconds, right? And more importantly, how do we look at trend lines? What is the meaning behind the trend lines? When we draw these lines, most people just draw it blindly, but they don't understand what's the meaning behind these lines. So we'll dive into that, all right? Look at a little illustration before we dive into some live case studies as well, so that you understand this concept clearly, right? So what is the trend line? So let me just go ahead to explain to you how it works in the stock market and how a stock mostly moves, right? So for example, we have a stock that moves something like this, up and down and up. This is what we call a bit of a downtrend, right? A downtrend. And how do we know whether it's a downtrend? Well, first thing first, you could see that we have what we call lower highs. You can see right over here, if a stock is forming, lower highs, I mean, each time it moves up, it rebounds back up, it hits to a certain level, all right, and then sellers came back and push it even lower. So when it rebounds, it does not rebound back to the previous high. It just rebounds a little bit, and sellers comes back and push it even lower. And then what happens is that it finds a new low, it rebounds again, and then what happens? We find another high, right, which is lower than the previous high. So same thing, the high gets lower and lower. Does it make sense? Right. So once that happened, that is pretty much a stock that is pushing lower and lower. It forms lower highs and also lower lows. So based on these lower highs and lows, so when we draw this trend lines, we look at a period of like at least 1 and 3 to 6 months. So we don't look at like 1 or 2 weeks because it's too short a time frame. You can't really count much of a trend with a short time frame. So you want to zoom out, look at a longer time frame. Later look at some case studies. But once you zoom out, look at 6 months to a year or so, you can gauge the trend. Is it forming lower highs or lower lows, right? If that's happening, right, great, that is where it's pretty much in a downtrend. And once you get the meaning, right, pretty much the lower lows and lower high, yes, then you are able to draw what we call a trend line. So now you can go ahead to draw a downward sloping channel resistance line. So this is what we call a red line sloping down. You can call it a resistance. We call it a channel resistance line, so that you can see that it is pretty much a channeling down, all right? And as long as we stay below this red line, we are in a downtrend, right? So when it is in a downtrend, you can think about, getting out. If you're holding on to stocks blindly, you want to think about getting out. Or you could also think about taking like short positions to profit when it hits low and low, because as I mentioned, stocks like this can go down and down and down. So you want to be careful if you're holding on to stocks like this, all right? So how do we know if the trend has turned from like this downtrend, forming lower highs on that, right, and turn into what we call an uptrend, or maybe just stop and getting out of this downtrend, right? How do we tell, right? Very simple. So what happens is that, it finally breaks above, this downward sloping channel resistance line right over here. So for example, it could be right over here, whereby finally, right, we broke above this downward sloping channel resistance line. So that's a good thing. That's a good thing, which shows that finally, it does not form lower highs, right? It is actually attempting to find a new high, or slowly trying to see strength coming back, and we find a higher low as well. So you can see right over here, the lows we're pretty much going lower and lower and lower. So when we break above a downward sloping channel resistance line, all right, essentially you can see that the low could actually be higher, or it could be the same, all right? It could be the same, it could be higher, but there's a sign of strength as well, because it doesn't just go lower, it doesn't break and find a new low, all right? And we are consolidating at a higher level, or higher support is being found right now. So if the lows get higher and higher and higher, great, that is a good thing. That is where potentially we could turn into a uptrend. All right, so that is what one thing we'll look out for in terms of a trend change from a downtrend to an uptrend. Right, so we might just break above this downward sloping channel resistance. We might consolidate a little bit, or then we might actually start to push upwards as well, and that's where potentially the uptrend can form, right? So we might just turn from a downtrend to an uptrend, or we might, turn to what we call a consolidation phase, whereby it starts to consolidate sideways a little bit, up and down. It could be a few months of here, before breaking a resistance level again right over here, and then we might turn into a uptrend, all right, up here. And once there's uptrend, same thing first, we want to understand what as an uptrend means before we even draw a line, right? So an uptrend just means that buyers are coming back, they are prepared to buy at higher prices, and when they do that, we can see that there is now higher lows. Can you see there's higher lows? That means each time it comes back down. So you can see, right, even in an uptrend, we do sell off as well. Look at this, right? You actually sold off. Look at this, sold off, it's sold off. So you actually sold off, and sold off. Why? Because people will take some profit in an uptrend as well. So it doesn't mean an uptrend means it will go up every single day forever, right? No, it can also retrace back down a little bit in the short term, all right? But the question is, when it retraces back down, does it retrace like all the way down, or like hit lower, or does it just retrace like a little bit? Does it just retrace a little bit, and buyer starts coming back, and then we found a higher support level, and it starts to rebound from the higher support level and push even higher? Does it make sense? So if that's happening, great, all right. It just shows that there is strength, all right, in this stock, and based on this, higher support levels that are being found right over here, right? You can see that these are the highest support levels being found in uptrend. We can now draw what we call an upward sloping channel support line, right? Pretty much connecting the lows. So sometimes you don't need to draw this line, but you can just look at the chart or the prices of the stock, and is it forming higher lows over a 3 to 6 months period or a year period, right? If it is, great, you might not even need to draw the line, right? But just for the sake of this trend line trading strategy, right, you can go to draw this line, and this line pretty much connects the lows, right? Connect the lows of these points, whereby it starts to rebound. So it forms higher lows, and the more times it touches this line and stays above this line, we are pretty much in an uptrend, right? So right over here, this is what we call an uptrend, and that's where we want to think about buying stocks like this, stocks that are showing signs of a reversal, or stocks that are already in a very firm uptrend. We want to thinking about getting in on stocks like this to buy, all right, even though they might be slightly more expensive, because as I mentioned, right, we don't want to buy because it's going down and down and down, like in a downtrend like this, because we just really don't know how low they can go, right? They can just go lower and lower and lower, so you don't want to buy until there are clear signs of a reversal. All right, so that's pretty much in a nutshell what is this trend line trading strategy about, right? So before drawing these lines, you want to understand, right, the meaning behind these lines. All right, guys, so I hope you like this video up to now, and you have a better idea of what is a trend line, how do we draw it, and also the meaning behind drawing these trend lines. So if you have learned something so far, guys, I would appreciate it, and give me a like, all right, and smash the subscribe button as well, so that you will not miss out on videos like this, right? So let's dive into a few case studies to really understand and dive deeper into this trend line trading strategy, and how do we actually draw these lines on real live stocks, right? So give me a like, all right, smash the subscribe button. That will really help out the channel, and thank you so much for doing that, right? So let's go on to our first case study right over here. There's one of those stocks that we like, all right, and this stock is called CrowdStrike. Stock code is CRWD in the US market. So let's see if you can go to draw trend lines, or see where is the trend over the past couple of years. So as I mentioned, right, when we draw trend lines, we want to kind of like zoom out over a 6 months to a year period, 2 years if you want to zoom in a little bit further, right? But you don't want to just zoom in like like only a few days. For example, if you look at trend lines like this, all right, that would be too near a period. That's like only a few weeks to a month or two, all right? So you can't really tell the trend because it's just too short a period. So zoom out first. Look at a longer term perspective of a stock, right? So just try to zoom out right over here, and from there you are able to tell the trend, right? So very simple. Let's take a look at this, right? For example, we have this stock right over here, and before drawing the trend, like let's take a look at this stock maybe from this period to this period. You can see that this was somewhere in 2020. So even before drawing the trend line, you could see that we are pretty much in an uptrend. Why? Because it has formed what we call higher low. So can you see, right? Each time it pushes higher, it actually retraces back down. Look at this, retrace back down, it retraces back down, it retraces back down. So there is selling pressure that came out as it is in an uptrend. Does it make sense? So there is selling that can come in an uptrend as well. But the question is, as it sold off, right? As it sold off, where did it go to? Did it like, go all the way down and starts heading lower, or it went back to the previous support level? Or did it just go down a little bit to a higher support, and that support came in and buyers came in, and then it starts to rebound from that higher support? So you can see, right, higher support. So that is pretty much what we call in an uptrend, right? We have found higher support along the way, and buyers are prepared, are okay to buy at higher prices. When that happens, you are in a pretty good uptrend, I would say, in the mid to long term, over a year period, depending on prices. So for example, this from like early 2020 to end of 2020 to 21, all right, so about 1-2 years period. So pretty good long-term uptrend, I would say, just by looking at the lows and high, even before drawing any single line. But now, with all these points that I've pointed out, can we actually draw a line if we want to? Well, we can, all right. For example, so we can connect these points with a line. So of course, you need like 2 points to form a line, but now you have like 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 points to form a line. Even better, that gives a bit more weight to that trend line, all right, because there's many points touching it, and many times it rebounds from that line. So let's go to try to draw a line right over here. All right, so you can see based on the bottom. So you try to get the best fit line, because sometimes it wouldn't be like so beautiful, like what we've drawn over here. Wow, it touches and it rebounds and nears it super close and it starts to rebound. It might not be like that. It might just nears it 5-10% away, all right? It might be really far from it, but sometimes it's really close, or sometimes it might just break a little bit and come back up again. So that is how it works in the stock market. It will not be so beautiful. This is in theory, all right? But reality, all right, it could just near it or just be very close to it, and buyers start coming back in an uptrend, right, before it even touches the trend line. So let's go ahead to see if we can draw this line right over here. So click on this, and I would say that we can draw, I would say, a line like this, right over here. All right, so let's just put it in green in color, because this is an upward sloping line. So you can see right over here, all right, this is the first point we have it. All right, so somewhere around here, you can see we didn't really like near it. All right, somewhere around here, we didn't really, we almost neared it and then rebounded. Here we touched about 1 time, 2 times, 3 times. So that's the reason why I draw this line, because this is where many times we have touched. 1, we neared it, touch, and somewhere around here, can you see, guys, right over here, finally we broke down this trend line, this upward sloping, what we call a channel support line. We have finally broke below this trend line. So many times, in fact, for like almost 2 years, we have been above it, we neared it, we rebounded from it so many times. So can you imagine, finally after 2 years, we did not like rebound from it, we did not like go higher. In fact, we actually broke down from this green line and went lower. So what does it mean? Does it mean you can push higher? Does it mean that the uptrend is very strong? No, right? I mean, it probably wouldn't mean like it's a very firm downtrend or it's going to crash, but it can mean that there is some sort of selling pressure. There is some sort of some weakness potentially coming back if we stay below this line, or if we break to a lower support level, then it might not be so strong. It might not be so good. You want to be a bit careful. You have got in, you have rode the uptrend fully, great, right? That's where you can also think about maybe locking in some profits or getting out, because it just doesn't look as strong as it once was. Does it make sense? All right, so that is how, just by looking at this upward sloping channel support line right over here, we broke, it looks a little bit shaky. That's where you could also think about getting out. So the trend could potentially, not 100%, but it could potentially turn from an uptrend maybe to sideways a bit, or maybe continue going up, or it may even turn to a downtrend. But that just shows signs of the uptrend being a little bit shaky, not as strong as it once was over the past 2 years. All right, okay, so let's take a look, right? So for example, right now, so you can see when we broke this upward sloping green line, you could see that now, all right, one thing you want to look at is that in terms of this trend line, we're talking about higher support levels that are being found. So for example, if there's actually traded higher again, we might have found a higher support level right over here. We might have seen something like another green point right over here. So that would be a higher support, and the support gets higher and higher. So that's fine. That's a good uptrend. But when we were to break below this channel support line right over here, all right, so you can see that when that happens, now it is not really a higher support. In fact, the support actually became lower. All right, so this was the support here, support, and now the support actually became back to here. All right, back to here. Let me just draw it for you. over here, you can see this is the support level, pretty much back to this support level where we were, all right, a couple of months back, but it just broke down and the support did not get higher. It went back to the same support that we were a few months back when it was much lower. Does it make sense? All right, and then it went even lower. All right, it went even lower. It went even lower. Does it make sense? All right, so when that happens, that just shows that, it could be a bit of a downtrend. You want to be careful. And so now, when it's turned from, so let me just put this back to green in color. And now you can see that we have formed what we call lower highs as well. So let me just remove this, and you can see that we have turned from an uptrend to a downtrend, right? Let's look at support level and also from the high. So right now, you see that the highs, so this is like the high, all right, we have hit the high, the highs, and the highs. Does it make sense? So the highs gets lower, right? Pretty much what I was talking right over here, all right? So we form lower highs. So we have pretty much turned from an uptrend to a downtrend. We form lower highs, lower lows. So until we see something like this again, like something like this again, it broke above and then it starts to consolidate and push up again, great, then that's where you can think about getting it. But when we have formed something like this, right, maybe we're right here, or we could be here, or we could be here, then you want to be careful. We can actually hit even lower. All right, so you can see lower highs, and same thing, you based on these points, the red points that I've drawn, you could actually draw what we call now a downward sloping channel resistance line connecting the highs, right? Connecting the highs. So right over here, you can see that maybe we could have a point right around here. Let me just put it in red in color. So this is something like this that I've drawn, right? Look at this red line. Yeah, this is pretty much what I'm doing right now, just to share with you guys. Nothing complicated. That's pretty much what we have covered, but now we are doing it on some real life stocks. All right, so this is pretty much the point. So you can see first point, 2, we almost touched it, came back down. Here as well, we touched, look at this, 2 times. Here as well, came back down. All right, we neared it, came back down, and somewhere around here as well. All right, somewhere around here as well. All right, we touch it, came back down, and finally, you can see right over here, same thing. We got this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points forming this downward sloping red line, and we managed to climb back, all right, or break above this red line. Okay, great. When that happens, it is pretty much back to this thing which I talked about, where we are like right over here, all right, whereby it could, not 100%, but we could potentially now turn from that downtrend, right? And how long would that be, right? So this downtrend would be like from, November 2021 all the way to beginning of 2023. So like more than a year of just pushing lower and lower, lower highs, lower lows, and finally that has potentially ended, and it could turn back into an uptrend, and that's where you want to start thinking about it again if you are looking to buy or to catch the reversal or to ride the uptrend like what we have done over here all the way up. Now that could potentially happen. Does it make sense? Right, so that's how we look at it. And right now, let's see if we can have it turn into an uptrend, right? So yeah, you can see that we have formed what we call higher lows. So it's back to the same thing again, right? Higher lows again. So you can see higher lows, another higher lows right over here. Now we're somewhere around here. But based on this, over the past 8 to 10 months, we have formed higher lows, even without drawing that upward sloping channel support line, the green line. But let's just go to draw it, since this video is about trend lines. So we could draw a line, something like this, connecting the lows, right? Connecting the lows. So right over here, okay, let me just remove this, and remove this, and remove this. All right, so you can see this line right here, an upward sloping green line. We try to connect and get the best fit line right here. So you can see we kind of touch about like 1 time, right? 1 time, 2 time, 3, 4, we neared it. All right, now we are still above it. So I would say we are pretty much in an uptrend as long as we stay above this upward sloping channel support line. So in cases like this, that's where you can pretty much think about getting in on stocks like this to ride the uptrend, to maximize your profits along the trend, because you don't want to go against the trend, especially in the stock market. So as long as you are in the right direction of the trend, all right, it's an uptrend, you think about buying, that's great. All right, of course you want to think about buying at certain areas, certain zones. That's for another video. All right, but this is pretty much about trend lines, and that's pretty much what you can do just by wanting to be in the same direction as the trend. So as long as we stay above this line, it might be just pushing higher. This is what could happen. We might just consolidate. As I say, in uptrend doesn't mean you go up every single day. It might push up a little bit, it might come back down a bit. But as long as we stay above this green line, we can extrapolate it right over here. And as long as we stay above it, I would say we are pretty much an uptrend. But if we were to break down below it, then open your eyes, then we are pretty much back to right over here again, whereby you want to be careful because that's where some selling or a potential downtrend can return again. Are you following so well? All right, so that is pretty much how you look at trend lines. So I hope this case studies has served you well. You understand a little bit on trend lines. Alright guys, so that is the end of the video. I hope you like this video, the perfect trend line trading strategy that has worked for me forever, and how you can apply it as well to be in the same direction as a trend, because as I mentioned, you don't want to go against the trend, you want to be along with it, because it's harder to be wrong when you are with the trend, right? So I hope you understand about trend as well, how to draw this trend line, and most importantly, what is the meaning behind drawing these lines. As I mentioned, right, sometimes we don't really need to draw the line because just by looking at the chart very quickly in less than 2 seconds, you get it, whether it's an uptrend or downtrend, just by looking at the lows and high. But you want to keep it simple, you can simply draw this upward or downward sloping trend lines. Alright, so I hope you like this video guys. Joey here, thank you so much for watching. If you like this video guys, I would appreciate you can give me a like, and of course smash the subscribe button as well. That will really help out the channel, and thank you so much for doing this. So you're going to find out a little bit, as I mentioned, this is just about trend lines, but there's so much in terms of the trend strategy as well. So we're running a few webinars and web class to share my one good trend strategy, whereby we look not just at trend lines, but we look at some of the things like indicators, candlestick, and how it all fits in as to where to time your entry and exit, and how we actually have a system, all right, to guide us on entry and exit as well, based on like some bullish or maybe even bearish signals that comes out on the system. So you're gonna find out a little bit more on that, on the system or the framework behind the entire strategy as well. Click on the link below or around this video. I'll place a link there. Attend one of those free webinars to find out more, and look forward to sharing with you about the entire one good trend strategy. Alright, so Joey here, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Take care.